Lord of the Rings of Power on Amazon Prime Video is one of the biggest nightmares we've ever seen. Not just because of how poorly it performed with audiences and in the ratings, but mostly because of how expensive this show was. This is the most expensive series of all time. Over $1 billion for just 2 seasons of this show, and season 1 was a nightmare. Not only did the fans hate it after being attacked by the very same people that were making this, when they decided to insert identity politics, when they decided to make it the story they wanted to create instead of sticking to Tolkien's lore, the fans didn't like it very much. And as a result, we saw that nobody finished this show. Only a third of people, 37%, nearly a third of people finished this series if they started it. To put that in perspective, pretty much any time a streamer has a show that gets a number under the 50%, when you're looking at that, when you're looking at completion rate, they fucking cancel it on the spot because it's not worth having around. Well, in the case of Lord of the Rings of Power, they are already trying to do damage control before season 2 is even out. They're going right back to the same tactics of blaming the fans, calling them racist, calling them sexist, saying that the fans are the problem, not the garbage that they're putting out. And we saw it from the very beginning. They started off by calling fans racist. They started off by saying, if you have a problem with this, you're patently evil. That's what the showrunners, that's what the producers said. The people that are creating this show said, you are evil if you have a problem with what we're doing to the lore of J.R.R. Tolkien. And already in the lead up during production of season 2, they're saying similar things. They had Ishmael Cruz Cordova come out there and say, I was so brutally attacked. They needed a therapist on set for me because I was just so affected by it. Well, now the latest person to come out and play victim is Sophia Namvet, the one who plays Disa, the big, fat, black dwarf from Rings of Power. The Lord of the Rings of Power actress Sophia Namvet, I was statistically the most attacked cast member. Now, this is someone who, yeah, there was backlash for, because obviously Tolkien did not describe the dwarves as black. He described them as anything but that. And that's a massive problem, disrespecting Tolkien's lore. The way that Disa was portrayed also not connecting with Tolkien's lore. But maybe more so than anything else, it's the attitude she had when coming into this franchise, that she clearly had no idea what she was talking about. Just listen to some of these things that she said in these interviews. Focus on what she's the first of.
Excited for our show.
Tell me a little bit more about Princess Disa and the fact that you are the first black woman to be a dwarf in Tolkien, the first woman to be a dwarf in Tolkien. But what do we learn about woman dwarves that we didn't know through your portrayal?
Well, we learned that they exist.
Start there.
We learned that they exist because they'd never been described before. Female dwarves had never been described before. But black female dwarf, that's right.
Thank you so much, Angelique, for noticing and acknowledging the fact that this is the first time that we see a woman, and the first time that we see a black woman in this area and this world and these works of Tolkien. You know, this is...
Now, that is 1,000% inaccurate, which that's one of the things that upset the fan base, because all you got to do is go back to The Hobbit, and you can see they had female dwarves, and they were actually accurately cast and depicted the right way. Weird how that works. Well, maybe that was just a slip because the reporter said something. She couldn't have said the exact same thing in other interviews, right?
So this show, of course, is shrouded in secrecy. A lot of fans don't really know what, all of the characters are about. So first of all, for our fans, tell us who your character is and who is she all about?
She is Princess Disa, the first female dwarf that we have ever seen.
Again, just straight up either lying or being so stupid and fucking ignorant that you don't know any better. When that happens, there tends to be criticism from a very loyal, very passionate fan base. But what they're already doing is they're coming out here and they're trying to set the stage. They're trying to set the narrative. Before season 2 is even done filmed, I think they're still working on it. Maybe they've wrapped. Either way, we're not going to see it for quite some time. But they're already putting this out there, trying to keep it in everyone's minds that, you know what, if anyone attacks us, it's just because they're bigots. That's the only reason the show gets any criticism. Same thing we've seen with things like The Little Mermaid recently, time and time again. And now this is literally, well, I'm the biggest victim. Now, when it comes down to straight up poundage and surface area, Sophia Namvet may very well be the biggest victim. I don't know. But when it comes to what she's talking about, she is trying to be like, yes, I am the biggest victim here because I was the first dwarf, the first female dwarf which is wrong. The first female black dwarf, which I guess that's technically true because that's an abomination of Tolkien's work. But it's just so ridiculous and predictable. I imagine that Lord of the Rings of Power Season 2 is going to be even worse than what we saw for Season 1. We're a long way off from that, but already the narratives are starting to play out for Amazon and this cringe failure that is Rings of Power.